Welcome back. It was certainly a heated week for Texas politics. The debate over the state's budget as well as the governor's feud with California are intensifying. To break it all down, we have a great roundtable for you. Ben Philpott is here from KUT Radio. Christy Hoppe joins us from the Dallas Morning News. And Richard Whitaker is here from the Austin Chronicle. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Well, hi there. All right, so I want to talk about this bipartisan effort in the House to maybe restore some of those education funds. Jim Pitts is saying that we have maybe just under $1 billion that would be left over before we hit the spending max for this session. Do you think that that's actually going to be something they're going to do? What do you think, Ben?
I think that they're going to look at some of the, maybe the grant program stuff. Speaker Strauss has said that he's not sure that, you can deal with the funding formulas considering school's already started, teachers have already been laid off, classes have already been consolidated. Plus we have we're waiting on a ruling eventually down the road from the Supreme Court about what we can do with the funding formulas. But they cut $1.4 billion from the different grant programs. And there's been a lot of talk about trying to add money back in that avenue.
Do you think that with talking about this, $1 billion roughly, that maybe that will diffuse some of the efforts by Democrats to try to get the entire 5.4 that was cut last session restored?
The Democrats will continue to try and get that restored, if only to force the Republicans to take a vote on restoring money to public schools, which a court has already said is unconstitutionally too underfunded, inadequately funded. So the Democrats want to continue to let the voters know the Republicans cut this money, schools are struggling, and that they are doing everything they can to get some money back into the schools.
This smaller effort, what does it say that it is technically a bipartisan effort, even kind of has the backing of Speaker Strauss?
I think actually there's a lot more than a marginal bipartisan effort. If you look particularly at the House Education Committee, there's a lot of moderate Republicans and Republicans with an education background, former school board trustees who came in the last election. And Speaker Strauss put them all on there with a reason. And I think he, as much as anybody else, understands that the funding cut was a horrible experience for everybody. And every legislator last time suffered. Their districts were hit. So they all know how bad it was. Now it's how quickly do they move to restore what was done during the last session.
Yeah, what is the importance about moving quickly? Because school districts have to start setting their budget now before the fiscal year's up.
Well, yes. I mean, if we wait until the Supreme Court makes a ruling, that may not be until after the primaries next year, which means they'll be deep into the planning for the 2014-15 school budgets. It's too late for this year, but can anything be in place for the next school year? Possibly, but only if they move now.
And everything would have to get past Governor Perry, but he's been busy over in California this week trying to, I guess, what Californians are saying, poach businesses from that state and bring them over here to Texas. Didn't have any luck so far. I think that they said he was talking to maybe 20 businesses or so, but Californians are not too happy about that. Let's hear what one liberal group has to say.
Check the fine print. About the only people who get those breaks are the ones who hand them big campaign cash.
Okay, so I also understand that they still are inviting, businesses to come here, but they say you don't have to love Governor Perry to set up shop in Texas. What do you think about this whole fight?
It's Governor Perry's model for business in Texas. He has, he's created, as he likes to say, the good regulatory climate and low taxes and all that. And then he goes out and he gets businesses to move from other states. It started with him creating, the Texas Enterprise Fund and the Emerging Technology Fund. Those were ways of kind of closing the deal, as he says, bringing businesses into the state. It was interesting when he was on the presidential campaign talking about his Texas economic miracle. Well, how was he going to expand that when he was president? If his model is to take from other states to move to Texas, how do you then do that when you're a full president, which he never quite exactly explained, but it's a long-standing battle. He does love to make fun of California and some of the other big states that maybe vote in his mind the wrong way, and invite those people to come to Texas.
Christy, if he is going to run for president again and he's making Californians mad, how does that mean that he's going to do on the nation's level?
He's making the right kind of Californians happy, is how he looks at it. It's not a mistake that he went to California. California has been struggling. They've just had a tax raise, and they have a Democratic governor. So how better to go in and take your message of we have created more jobs than any other state in the nation than to California, to try and rehabilitate his reputation. It was sullied when he ran for president. He is still trying to figure out whether he has the cachet to run in 2016. And there are a lot of big Republican donors in California, and that's part of who this message was aimed at.
Richard, what does it say about him going outside the state and doing these things while we have a legislative session going on?
It seems that he's very disconnected from what's going on under the dome to a certain degree, but he has more than enough lieutenants to do his bidding. I just think the trip to California was a very strange move that was from a politician who has not had great success on the national stage. I'd be interested to see who thought in his campaign people that this was a good plan. I don't know that it's going to pay off long term. Maybe it picks up a few donors, but the idea that Californian businesses that have stayed there throughout this entire throughout all the economic problems they've had, and they are turning round, are going to suddenly come, oh, well, let's go to Texas. Why would they do that? I don't see the logic in that. And they can automatically play the card of, well, how would you like it if we came to Texas and did the same thing? If we came and poached from your high-tech industries, who, frankly, do have turnover issues. I mean, we've all seen what Dell's been through, and we know a lot of big high-tech firms in Texas have laid people off. So they can make the same case about us. You
mentioned he has a lot of lieutenants. Well, let's turn to the lieutenant governor race. We had Jerry Patterson on earlier in the show. You know, he, land commissioner, running against Todd Staples, the ag commissioner, Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst, and then maybe Susan Combs, the comptroller. How do you think this is all going to play out? Because it seems like all of them have kind of big personalities. What do you think?
Well, he does. He also has kind of a fiery group behind him. He, I won't say he's necessarily a Tea Party candidate, but he is, you know, the one out of those that has reached out maybe the best to that section of the Republican primary voter. So, you know, that's going to be a big help. And when you look at how well or not so well David Dewhurst did with that segment of the Republican primary, you know, that's why Patterson's out there kind of putting his flag in the ground and saying, you know, I'm a candidate you can rally around for this office.
Real quick, who do you think has the best chance of lieutenant governor?
I have no idea. Patterson.
If David Dewhurst decides to run again, there is a certain nod in Texas about keeping an incumbent who's done a good job. So probably Dewhurst, but Patterson probably beyond that.
And Richard, what do you think?
I don't necessarily think that we've seen whoever the Republican nominee could be. I think all of them alienate large sections of the voter base. I think Todd Staples comes in from Joe Patterson's right in a lot of ways, so they're going to be fighting over whatever Tea Party vote there is. Yeah, we may not have seen somebody. You could see somebody come in as a consensus candidate, a John Corona-style figure, the Dallas senator, who could come in as a moderate, trying to pick up Democratic votes in the primary. I don't necessarily think we know from that list who it is yet.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Now we want to hear from you at home. You can email me at josh.hinkle@kxan.com. You can also find me on Twitter at HinkleJ. We want to hear what you have to say. And be sure to visit the legislative section of kxan.com. There you'll find our guide to the legislative process in Texas, our list of the major players, and my blog from the Capitol. Thank you for joining us for In Session, In Depth. Have a great morning.